When we think of the might of ancient Rome, images often come to mind. Legions advancing beneath crimson standards, emperors addressing the masses from marble platforms, or crowds roaring in vast arenas. Yet behind these grand scenes stood the men who shaped the destiny of the greatest empire of the ancient world, the generals. Today, we explore the lives of the 10 most formidable military leaders in Roman history. One of them was Publius Cornelius Scipio, known to history by a title earned in war, Africanus. He was the man who defeated Hannibal Barca, perhaps the most dangerous enemy general Rome ever faced. During the Second Punic War, Rome faced disaster. Hannibal had crossed the Alps with war elephants, destroyed Roman armies, and threatened the very heart of the Republic. But Scipio chose a different path. Rather than face Hannibal in Italy, he struck directly at Carthage. This bold move forced Hannibal to abandon his campaign and return home to defend his city. The decisive confrontation came in 202 BC at the Battle of Zama. Scipio studied Hannibal's tactics, adapted his formations, and neutralized Carthage's greatest weapon, the war elephants. By creating intentional gaps in his lines, he allowed the elephants to pass harmlessly through. Coordinated trumpet blasts and shouting then disoriented the animals, turning many back against their own troops. Once close combat began, Rome's disciplined infantry overwhelmed the Carthaginian forces. Hannibal was defeated. This victory not only saved Rome from collapse, but also laid the foundation for its expansion into the Iberian Peninsula. Another transformative figure was Gaius, Marius of Arpinum, a man far from the senatorial elite who rose through sheer battlefield merit. His influence extended beyond military victories. Until his era, only landowners could serve in the Roman army. Marius changed that, introducing one of the most important reforms in Roman military history by allowing landless citizens, the capitae, censi, to enlist. These men received training, equipment, and crucially, the promise of land in return for service. This reform created a professional, disciplined army, but one increasingly loyal to its general rather than the Senate. It was the start of a dangerous precedent. On the battlefield, Marius was relentless. He fought the Numidians in Africa, but his most famous victories came against the Germanic Teutones and Cimbri, tribes that had previously humiliated Roman legions and were advancing toward Italy. Marius intercepted and destroyed them, with estimates of over 100,000 enemy deaths under his command. For these achievements, he was elected consul 7 times, an unprecedented feat in Roman history. Yet his growing power bred political tension, particularly with an ambitious rival who would, years later, turn that rivalry into open conflict. Sulla was nothing like the dictator Rome had imagined, born into a modest family. Recognized for his stylish appearance and sharp gaze, he concealed a cold and calculating mind. He became a warning sign of the Republic's decline. Before taking power, Sulla built his reputation as a commander in the Numidian Wars, aiding Gaius Marius in capturing Jugurtha. But allies soon turned into rivals. When the Senate attempted to strip him of his command in a critical campaign against King Mithridates, Sulla did what no Roman had dared before. He marched on Rome with his legions. The sight was unprecedented. Citizens fled in fear, and senators panicked. For the first time, a city accustomed to sending armies abroad now watched one march through its own gates with hostile intent. Sulla defeated Marius and seized the role of dictator, a position once temporary and strictly for emergencies. He used his authority to reshape Rome, reforming the courts, reducing the power of the people's tribunes, and restoring the Senate's influence. Yet his most infamous act was the proscriptions, public lists naming political enemies to be executed. Their property was seized, their bodies displayed, and anyone could kill them without facing punishment. When Sulla stepped down voluntarily, many thought the crisis was over. But the precedent was set. Violence had become an accepted path to power. Pompey was not born great. He earned the title Magnus as a young man through a string of rapid victories that impressed even his mentor, Sulla. Over time, he rose to become one of the most powerful figures of the late Republic. A military prodigy, Pompey led early successes in Sicily and Africa, fought alongside Sulla during the Civil War, and quickly forged his own path, driven by relentless ambition. One of his most notable achievements came in 67 BC, when he was charged with eliminating the pirates who had plagued the Mediterranean for decades. These pirates endangered Rome's food supply and disrupted trade across the empire. Pompey acted with speed and precision, commanding 500 ships and 120,000 men. He divided the sea into patrol zones, blocked escape routes, and captured thousands of pirates. In just 3 months, the Mediterranean was secure once again, Rome's Mare Nostrum, our sea. From there, Pompey turned east, defeating King Show, Mithridates, reorganizing provinces and vastly expanding Rome's influence. His fame became legendary. With such prestige, he entered the First Triumvirate, a political alliance with Julius Caesar and Crassus that dominated Roman politics for years. But with the death of Julia, Caesar's daughter and Pompey's wife, the personal bond holding the alliance together was broken. Crassus soon died in a failed campaign against the Parthians, and the triumvirate collapsed into rivalry. Pompey sided with the Senate while Caesar marched on Rome. Civil war became inevitable. In 48 BC, Pompey suffered defeat at the Battle of Pharsalus and fled to Egypt in search of refuge. Instead, he was met with betrayal. Acting on orders from the Egyptian court, hoping to win Caesar's favor, assassins took his life. His severed head was offered as a gift. But when Caesar saw it, he wept. His rival was gone, and with him, an entire era came to an end. Julius Caesar was more than a military leader. He was a force that reshaped Rome. He redrew its political map, expanded its dominion, and ultimately paid the price for defying every tradition of his time. His journey began in politics, but it was on the battlefield that his name became immortal. Between 58 and 50 BC, Caesar led the Gallic Wars with an army fiercely loyal to him. He faced numerous tribes, navigated treacherous terrain, and famously defeated the Gallic chieftain Vercingetorix at Alesia. Employing an ingenious double line of fortifications, one facing outward to repel reinforcements and one inward to trap the defenders, he combined strategic brilliance with ruthless precision. By conquering Gaul, Caesar not only tripled Rome's territory, but also amassed immense wealth and unmatched popularity among his soldiers and the people. The Senate, however, especially Pompey, viewed him as a growing threat. Ordered to disband his army and return to Rome as a private citizen, Caesar made a decision that would echo through history. He crossed the Rubicon River with his legions. It was an act of war. "The die is cast," he reportedly declared, plunging the Republic into another civil war. Caesar defeated Pompey at Pharsalus, pursued his fleeing enemies to Egypt, formed an alliance with Cleopatra, and continued campaigns in the eastern provinces. On his return to Rome, he was named dictator for life. He introduced the Julian calendar, centralized authority, and had coins minted with his own likeness. For a time, he seemed untouchable, but his downfall came in the very place he felt most secure, the Senate. In 44 BC, a group of conspirators, including Brutus, whom Caesar regarded almost as a son, stabbed him 23 times beneath a statue of Pompey. His death sent shockwaves through Rome. Rather than restoring the Republic, it triggered yet another civil war. Mark Antony embodied the Roman ideal of leadership: charismatic, fearless in battle, persuasive in speech, and steadfast in loyalty. He had stood beside Caesar in many campaigns, including the victory at Pharsalus. After the assassination, Antony swiftly seized control amid the chaos. His public reading of Caesar's will, which turned the people against the conspirators, remains one of the most powerful political acts in Roman history. To secure his position, Antony formed the Second Triumvirate with Octavian, Caesar's adopted heir, and Lepidus. They divided the Roman world among themselves, though the alliance was fragile from the outset. While commanding the eastern provinces, Antony met Cleopatra, Queen of Egypt, who would change the course of his life forever. Their relationship shocked Rome, not only because of romance, but because of calculated strategy. Antony settled in Alexandria, fathered children with Cleopatra, and, in a bold political move, declared those children rulers of eastern territories. For many Romans, this was open betrayal. Octavian seized the opportunity, launching a relentless propaganda campaign. He accused Antony of becoming too Eastern and abandoning core Roman values. This rivalry culminated in the decisive naval battle of Actium in 31 BC, where Octavian's forces decisively defeated the combined fleet of Antony and Cleopatra. Surrounded and facing defeat, Antony took his own life in 30 BC. Cleopatra followed soon after. With their deaths, Egypt became a Roman province, and the Republic's era ended. Octavian emerged as Rome's first emperor, but his rise owed much to Agrippa. Born outside the aristocracy, Agrippa was Octavian's childhood friend. His loyalty was both personal and strategic, firm and effective. Octavian was the statesman. Agrippa was the general. When the prince hesitated, Agrippa acted. When Rome needed victories, he delivered. His defining moment came at Actium. While Antony and Cleopatra relied on prestige and passion, Agrippa relied on precision. He severed their supply lines, isolated their forces, and personally commanded the Roman fleet. Through daring naval maneuvers, he forced the Egyptians to retreat, securing Octavian's ultimate triumph. Agrippa's influence extended beyond war. He restructured the army, improved aqueducts, drained swamps, built public baths, and most famously, oversaw the construction of the original Pantheon. He was both a commander and a builder of peace. During campaigns in northern Hispania and the Balkans, he reinforced Rome's borders and brought stability to the newly unified empire. He never sought the imperial title, though he could have claimed it. He remained loyal, married Octavian's daughter, and was named heir before his sudden death. Agrippa's life proved that in Rome, glory did not always come from the throne. Tall, charismatic, and brilliant in battle, Germanicus seemed destined for greatness. Nephew of Emperor Tiberius, grandson of Mark Antony, and officially adopted as heir, he represented a new, virtuous generation of Roman leadership. Beloved by soldiers and admired by citizens, his reputation was earned on the battlefield. After the devastating defeat at the Teutoburg Forest, where 3 legions were destroyed by Arminius, Rome demanded retribution. Germanicus led the campaign. Commanding along the Rhine, he advanced deep into Germania's hostile forests, defying even the feared gods of that land. In a symbolic act, he recovered the bones of the fallen legions and gave them proper burials, restoring Roman morale. In 16 AD, at the Battle of the Weser River, he faced Arminius directly. Through flexible tactics and the strength of Roman cavalry, he inflicted severe losses, yet his career was abruptly ended when Tiberius recalled him to Rome. Shortly after, while on a diplomatic mission in the east, Germanicus died under suspicious circumstances. Many believed he was poisoned. Rome mourned deeply, and his legacy lived on through his son Caligula and great-nephew Nero, both of whom would rule with far darker fates. Agricola may not be the most celebrated Roman, but his name still resonates in the history of Britannia, a land remote, hostile, and fiercely resistant to Roman control. Born into a respected family, Agricola advanced through the ranks as a strict administrator and skilled strategist. When appointed governor of Britannia in 77 AD, much of the island remained unconquered. Native tribes fought hard, and Roman rule was limited mostly to the south. Agricola changed that. Over 7 years of near-constant campaigning, he extended Roman power farther than ever before. He built forts, fortresses, and roads, not only to move troops, but to project Roman authority deep into enemy lands. He opened direct military routes, set up administrative hubs, and encouraged Romanization by integrating local elites into imperial culture and politics. But Agricola was not just a governor, he was a soldier. He led his forces north into what is now Scotland, and at the Battle of Mons Graupius, decisively defeated the Caledonians, inflicting heavy losses while sustaining minimal Roman casualties. It was under his leadership that naval expeditions confirmed a long-held suspicion. Britannia was, in fact, an island. Success, however, came at a price. The Emperor Domitian, driven by jealousy and suspicion, recalled Agricola to Rome. He was never granted another military command. He spent the rest of his days in silence, shadowed by whispers of poisoning, just as so many others who had risen too high under insecure rulers. Drusus, the younger brother of Tiberius and the favored son of Livia, wife of Augustus, stood apart from many Roman nobles. His reputation was not inherited, it was forged on the battlefield. He led daring campaigns that pushed Rome's frontier beyond the Rhine River. Young, ambitious, and highly respected by his soldiers, Drusus was entrusted with one of the empire's most challenging assignments, subduing the Germanic tribes. Between 12 and 9 BC, he led a series of deep expeditions into the heart of Germania. He defeated the Tentari, the Usipetes, and the Sugambri, extending Rome's reach as far as the Weser and Elbe rivers, territories no Roman general had ventured into so boldly before. But his reputation rested on more than just victories. He was respected for his fairness, for sharing in the dangers of his men, and for being a present, grounded leader who marched, ate, and slept alongside his legions. This close connection with his troops became a lasting part of his legend. Tragically, in 9 BC, after a successful campaign, Drusus fell from his horse during a retreat and sustained fatal injuries. He died soon after at only 29 years old in the prime of his career. Rome mourned deeply. Augustus wept. Tiberius traveled for days to be at his brother's side in his final moments. Drusus was honored with monuments and posthumous tributes. His title, Germanicus, was passed down to his descendants, among them his son, the celebrated Germanicus, and even the notorious Emperor Caligula. Roman history is often told through the words of emperors and senators. Yet it was the generals, men of vision, bravery, and ambition, who truly shaped the empire's fate. They ventured into uncharted lands, made life-or-death decisions that would echo through centuries, and built Rome's power through both conquest and defense. Many paid for their brilliance, with exile, betrayal, or death. But all of them left a legacy deeply etched into the fabric of history. If you enjoyed exploring the remarkable minds behind Rome's military strength, remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and as always, may Mars guide you in battle.